Yes. Hello. Yes.
So we are here on World Mental Health Day. What are we talking about today, Bob?
Well, we're talking about Toronto mental health, which is really Canada mental health, which is really world mental health,
Which is actually Bob Mental.
and all of our mental health.
Yes. Yeah. This is actually, I think, the best time in recent history to talk about this because I think after what we've all been through in some way or another, we've all had to struggle with it. We've watched people struggle with mental health for years. There's always been a conversation around mental health. You know, we have to treat it like any other disease or anything else. No stigma, no stigma. But now that everybody is feeling some of it in some way because of COVID, I think it's easier to talk about, and I think it's the right time. And I think it's brave of you to be here, talk as openly and honestly as you always have. We've always talked about this, Rob. We spent a lot of time together, and I've always admired that. It took a long time for you to get there, but you've done a lot of good with it. So tell me about this work that you've created.
Well, this all started when I came back to Toronto after I had trouble getting out of bed for about 5 years. And I took a course called Mood Disorder Association of Ontario, laughing like crazy. And laughing like crazy allowed me a platform to use my comedy to destigmatize mental health. And that was over 5 years ago, Yossi. And I've been working on this for 5 years. And even though things have moved a little bit quickly, they haven't moved very quickly because everything that I was talking about 5 years ago is still here today.
Well, I found it amazing that the risk of putting yourself out there was equal to the risk of trying to get this program on the air. I mean, I remember you telling me that it was driving you, what did you say?
Crazy.
Right. Because you kept hitting these roadblocks and people just, and I'm thinking, a man who puts himself out there, and a human being. When I was at the synagogue, I had you come and speak on the high holidays. I feel that you need to be heard because you are all of us.
Well, you know, Yossi, when you say that I put myself out there, I put myself out there because I am a sufferer. I've been suffering for most of my life. I was diagnosed when I was 22 with Tourette's. And so I'm qualified to talk to other sufferers or people that they know that are sufferers about mental health. Sure, Kerry Price has just come out and said that he has mental health, but there's lots of us out there that also suffer and that also can talk very honestly about its challenges.
So, Bob, remember Old Baldy from the Beaver Valley?
Oh, it's beautiful.
One day, Bob and I were on a hike. We went up to Old Baldy, and Bob said, I need to do something else. We went to the edge of Old Baldy, and Bob just let out a stream of consciousness, whatever was going on in that little beautiful head. And what happens is, I'm starting to hear the real Bob, and it took me a long time to know you because I didn't understand what you were saying all those years, right? Who were you? What did the cottage mean to you? What did fishing mean to you? Why were you so crazy about the brown trout you caught? Like the pie, right? And what was it about you and the photography and you know, and things meant so much to you and hurt you so many times, so many people. And when I heard you shouting at the top of Old Baldy, I said to myself, this man is real. He's actually talking to the world. And I just want to say to you how much I admire that you've taken that pain and that hurt and that need to speak. And now you're speaking to people in a way that's helpful. You've overcome your own stuff. You got there.
But the reason, Yossi, I overcame it is that I had a stable platform to work on. And that was called Bob's Amazing Support Team, of which you were and still are. And there's many, many people that you have seen this documentary that were all there to support me. I ski, I teach skiing, and what's the basis of skiing? Stance and balance. You have to have a solid platform. So I had a solid platform, and that allowed me, Yossi, to start exploring the things in nature the things that for hiking, the fishing that you and I love, taking the sunsets, and developing a toolbox that you're going to see in this documentary that I and Mark Collins from Red Deer, Alberta, have put together over the last 5
So
years.
just before we start, give me an idea of how this came to be.
I was doing something with different than the other kids. I was on a podcast, and Mark saw me on Facebook and said, "I'd love to do a documentary on you, Bob. I suffer as well." And we have been evolving this thing over 5 years, and now it has turned into a wonderful documentary on how you can develop your own toolbox and customize it so that you can feel better about yourself and put one foot in front of the other.
And tell me about Mark.
Mark is a high school friend who's a professional documentary producer, and he lives in Red Deer. And when he saw different than the other kids, he basically said, "I want to do a documentary about you." And him and I have been working on this 5 years because we want to put out the message that there's no magic bullet. It's just hard work, patience, persistence, and I guess being lucky.
Did you think there was a magic bullet? Were you waiting for that moment?
Absolutely. Every time I went to the psychiatrist, I thought I was going to be better, and I was so disappointed. Every time I took a pill, and I'm still on psychiatric drugs, I thought I was going to be better, and I was disappointed. So it was only through hard work and development of my own custom toolbox that you're going to see that helped me get to the point where I can share with others on how they may be able to feel just a little bit better.
Wow. So, Bob, in all the years I've known you, you seem to keep more friends than anybody I know because you don't give up on people. And people haven't given up on you. And I know you have a little apology card you write to people, which basically is like, please forgive me in advance for my bad behavior. Now, Bob, you know that we're obviously talking to an audience tonight, and people are looking to you for inspiration. Mental health is the absolute underpinning of everything. It's shocking to me that people will pray for health and not include mental health. And I'll think of that as something crazy, nuts, insanity. And yet, I think every person we can touch and every person we can talk to can share with us the mental health challenge. And I'm really glad that we're here tonight to talk to an audience. And I'm really hoping that when we're done, people will share some questions. And Bob, if you need me, I can respond as well. But primarily, I want to hear from Bob.
Okay, well, I do need you, Yossi, because you have been there for me. You always will be there for me. And you are just like I am. Lots of friends, lots of people. You're a connector. You're somebody that nurtures relationships. And that's what this is all about. That's how you get better.
So, Bob, I have to tell you honestly, it took work to be your friend. But you know what? Once I figured it out, it's the best thing. The adventure is marvelous.
Well, I appreciate that, Yossi. It does take work because I'm a bit out there and I spend all my time putting a filter on. That's why I give those business cards out that say Bob Hogan wishes to apologize for his people.
But you know what, everybody? I know you're with me on this. We want to hear from Bob, see his movie, and then we'll come back, hopefully with some Q&A. Enjoy.
What's the premise of this documentary?
The premise of this documentary is that there's no magic bullet in our society. You can't take one drug that's going to make you better. So the premise is that you have to be aware of what works and be patient and practice until they become your friends and they become an ally rather than an enemy. In my case, the main thing in the toolbox was what I called my BAST, Bob's Amazing Support Team, because I wanted to feel better and I could call people. And for that short period of time, they made me feel better. But when they hung up, I felt desperate again. And the key is that because I had more than one person in my toolbox and different kinds of people in my toolbox and different kinds of people in my past, it allowed me when I really felt down. And actually then people called me, and it was something that I looked forward to.
My name is Michael Halbert. I have known Bob since grade 8. I transferred into St. Andrews Junior High. I was a real newbie. I really didn't know anybody. My social skills were horrible. And then I saw this guy, Coven, who hung out with another guy named Linder. And Coven was everywhere. Everyone knew him. Everyone liked him. He was all full of energy. He was just the kind of guy I wish I was, but I wasn't.
Hi, I'm Greg Bandler. I'm a good friend of Bob Coven's. Oh gosh, I'm just thinking back. I've known Bob. Oh, it's a sign that we're all getting older. I guess 40 plus years now. Met him first on the ski slopes at Beaver Valley. He's a great freestyle skier. There's a hill there called the Avalanche, big bumps, spring skiing. We had a great time skiing the moguls, and that was kind of how we initially bonded, and just our relationship took off from there.
My name's Brian Moran. I live in Toronto, but I met Bob about 24, well, a little longer than that, probably close to 30 years ago.
My name's Peter Chandler, and I was born and raised in Toronto. I met Bob through some mutual friends. He'd gone to Western, as had they, and we met in our early 20s. And while we were both from Toronto, we'd come from very different backgrounds, so quite different, but we had almost an immediate connection because we had some things in interest that I was aware of right away. We both enjoyed a laugh, and we both enjoyed people and a good time.
I'm Rabbi Yossi Saperman. I'm the senior rabbi of Beth Torah Congregation, and I've been here for 22 years. My relationship with Bob started much like any beautiful day that turns into a tornado. It looks beautiful. Suddenly out of nowhere, there's this wind and there's a blast of air and you find yourself spinning, and all it is dancing with Bob. Out of nowhere, this blast of energy.
So I'm Jack Langer. I'm one of Bobby's oldest friends.
And I'm Fern Shurkin Langer, and I'm married to Jack Langer. And since I came in early on, I'm also one of Bobby's oldest friends.
I've known Bobby since I was 2 and he was 3. We lived across the hall from each other. Our parents became friends. Our fathers were both surgeons. So we hung out together a lot in those days before either of us actually remembers. You know, I've known him since then, and we went to high school together, junior high and high school together. And he was always the life of the party. He was very charismatic, high energy guy, and was always very successful, but he always had a lot of anxieties as well.
Hi, my name's Patricia Rockman, and I'm a very long friend of Bob's, and I have known him for over 20 years from when we had a place in the Beaver Valley. And I'm also a physician and work in the area of mental health. So I first met Bob at the Beaver Valley Ski Club, and he was a big snowshoer, and we had a place there, and I really hated winter, and we had 3 little kids. Bob started taking me snowshoeing all around the area, and it was really gorgeous, and we would go for long hikes and talk, and that's when I started to get to know him and to start to understand some of the issues that he was dealing with.
Bob started having some issues coming up, which was really surprising and shocking to a lot of us. On some level, I guess it shouldn't have been, but we just knew Bob as being this amazing, high energy, focal point of the entire room kind of guy. When he went in, it was like magnetism. Everyone drew toward him one way or the other, partially because he's so loud and crude, but partially because he just has that kind of but I guess there's another side to that too that started to come out. he was in his car, truck, whatever it was, somewhere north of Toronto, and he had a cracked windshield, and that just shut him down. You know, cracked windshield usually means, am I okay? Is the windshield okay? Now I got a pin. It's going to cost me money. That's it. Get it fixed in a day or two. For him, that was colossal.
He moved up to the Beaver Valley area, and it was in and around that time. The more time he was spending up there, it was interesting because he left Toronto, where he was struggling a little bit in terms of employment and whatnot, moved up to Beaver Valley, which everyone thought was a great move for him. And, you know, he was living, I think he would describe it as living the life of envy. He could go skiing anytime he wanted to. He could go fishing anytime he wanted to. He could bake a pie and eat the whole thing anytime he wanted to. But it was in and around that time as well. The more time he was up there, the more isolated he was becoming. You know, that's when he really started to have some struggles, I think.
I occupy a bit of a unique position in Bob's life because while I'm part of his team and his supporter, I'm also his rabbi, which means that I uniquely get to engage him in a way that most people don't, in which I can be speaking the entire time on the pulpit and Bob doesn't say a word to me, which is very rare. Now, when we do get a chance to speak, Bob and I have a clear understanding that there is no other way to talk other than frankly, openly, and honestly. We share the truth about ourselves. We're not afraid to admit our struggles and our failures. And it's been challenging to watch Bob absorb his failures as though they were his narrative and forget all his successes.
Our relationship became really, really candid. And I did find myself more and more just flat out disagreeing with him because I would get, I think, tired of the negativity that he would throw at me about how nothing is ever going to work out. You know, he has nothing but bad breaks. Nobody cares about him anymore. These sort of messages, they come up a lot with, you know, depression and so on. And so on the one hand, if I'm trying to be a physician, I can be supportive. But on the other hand, being a friend who's just known him forever, it gets really tiring. And I would just get pretty blunt with him and disagree.
Bob went through a number of changes. Some of these were work related, so economic changes, relationship changes, and he started to really experience some issues related to mood and increasing levels of anxiety.
I can tell you that he certainly educated me and so many other people. When he first found this Mood Disorder Association of Ontario, they had a group Laughing Like Crazy, and we went to a performance. And I was like, I don't know if this is for you, Bob. And he went and he did it. He had a goal and he pursued it, and he went to the course every week. He graduated from the course. He did a routine at the end with all the other people that were in it. And he is there. He is your advocate. If you need him, you have mental health issues, he is there for you. He talks to you. He tells you there's no magic bullet, as there isn't. It's hard work and you have to work through it.
Hello, everybody. My name's Crazy Wildman. I don't know if it's a nickname or a diagnosis. Went and saw my psychiatrist and I asked him for his opinion. He said, "You're crazy." I said, "I want a second opinion." He said, "You're ugly." I said, "Seriously?" He says, "You have Tourette's." I Googled it. Is Google a man or a woman? A woman knows everything and tells you what to do. So I looked it up and it said uncontrollable social utterances with body twitches. So they said, "Would you like to try medical marijuana?" I said, "Try it." I've been self-medicating since I was 15. For my 16th birthday, I got a bomb, and my hockey team was sponsored by Zigzag rolling papers. Here's my Tourette's. Has a triad. It has ACD or ADD, OCD, Tourette's, and now I have a fourth problem. I'm delusional. I think I'm a comedian. Thank you.
I think Bobby is has matured, as we all hope we do as we get older. But I think he's got a lot more insight now into what happened and why it happened and how he can prevent it from happening again. He's got a lot more inner strength, I think, than he did after going through this process. It's like trial by fire. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think that that's what's happened with Bobby now. And he's not only gotten back up on his feet and healed himself, but he's now gone to the next step, which is to try and help other people. And that's fantastic, and because he's uniquely positioned to help other people who have various types of mental illness, because he's been there and he's survived it.
You're watching The Morning Show on Global Kingston.
Wishing you a great Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us. Bob Coven joins us. He is part of Absolute Comedy Night that's taking place October 17th. Bit of a fundraiser for Youth Mental Health Initiative at Hotel Dieu Hospital. Representing that angle, we have Nicole. And Bob Coven joins us, who is a stand-up comedy. Nothing funny about mental health issues, but when you have a night of comedy supporting that endeavor, that's okay.
Yeah, it's a tough thing trying to make mental health funny, but I do it because it's a way of reducing stigma and letting people know that they can laugh along with other people that have mental health.
You've dealt with it for years and years. I know I've publicly admitted that I have as well. And there's that lightning bolt that hits you one day where you realize there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train, that something can be done and you can cope.
That's right. I've had it all my life. I have Tourette's, which is a form of mental health. It has ACD, OCD, Tourette's. Now I have a fourth problem. I'm delusional. I think I'm a comedian.
So Bob, it's wonderful to see you. Welcome to Toronto.
Toronto Island. Look at this. This is fantastic.
It's beautiful here. I love it. Tell me more about what they can see when they see your documentary, No Magic Bullet.
Well, it's about the toolbox, and there's a bunch of stuff in the toolbox. The main one is my tremendous support system called my BAST, Bob's Amazing Support Team.
Yep.
And then after that is the mindfulness and the exercise and all the things that I've sort of customized, including the sunsets that we talked about.
Oh, so beautiful.
The last time. So hopefully people will see that if they can customize their toolboxes, they will be able to avoid the stress of COVID and isolation.
Yeah. So now that you brought up the sunsets, can you just give us a little snippet about what you're trying to accomplish with all of your beautiful photography?
Well, I wasn't trying to accomplish anything. I was just taking sunsets. And the next thing you know, people that are in cancer treatments, I'm sending it to them, and they're finding energy from them. And nobody ever says anything negative. They love them. They're fantastic. They're great. It's almost a sense of mindfulness, and it didn't cost anything. I didn't have to get a set. I didn't have to travel anywhere. I just go inside my house and take sunsets.
Aren't you lucky to live where you live? It is just, you know what it is? It's so calming and yet inspirational and very soothing all at the same time. So I can imagine, certainly for people that are experiencing any kind of difficulty, that would be just a beautiful thing to be able to share.
Well, I think it's a definitely representative of sort of what we've developed over the years. This is something that we segued into.
Yeah.
And if we can give it to other people and they can use it, just one person can, we've talked about this. If one person can use this to help themselves, then it's great. Cooking, baking specifically, is one of the things that I have in my toolbox that I've developed because it's something I enjoy, which is very important. But more important than that is it helps to calm what I call my monkey brain. You need to be organized. You need to have the supplies. You need to time things. And it's just a whole process where when you're doing it, you find that hours turn into minutes, which is the key to a lot of things that I do, because the most unrelaxing thing for me to do is relax. And of course, at the end, the reward is a healthy dessert as you cut the sugar in half. You know what ingredients went into it, and it helps to add to your healthy lifestyle, which is key to controlling your mental health as well as your physical health.
I was never really exposed to what, I guess, mental illness was and what it was capable of doing. Individuals have given him, not just medical professionals or other people dealing with the same situation, but he has taken this situation and really leveraged it. And nothing has made me happier than watching him give back to those who are still suffering through it. The best story I have was my dad went through a CAMH program called Laughing Like Crazy. And it was a 14-week, I think, comedy school that taught people how to create a comedy skit and develop a comedy skit to help them with their anxieties or their depressions or their red tape, so to speak. And I remember my dad calling me up saying, "Aaron, are you going to come to my graduation? It's my last one. I've worked hard on it. It's at the YMCA up on College and Young." I said, "Dad, I'm gonna be there. I promise you, I'm gonna be there." And I was working at King and Bay, and I remember looking at the time and jumping up and in a fast pace ran to the subway, got to the YMCA with my coat over my shoulder in the rain to be the last person showing up to the hall. And I felt like, wow, I feel like I'm the father right now, late for my child's graduation.
Probably 4 times, 5 times in the last 20, 25 years, Bob's hit pretty well bottom. Managed always to get out though. And this is the thing that makes Bob Coven. It makes him my brother, who I'm very proud of. So yeah, so in overall, my big brother, Bob Coven, who I admired when I was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I admire now, and I'm 57 almost, and he just turned 65, and it's great.
I don't know if Bob's unusual, but I think he was attuned to his experience. Like he was attuned to his personal experience. So he was able to name it and speak to it. The only thing is he couldn't get over it. Like when you're in it, it's very hard to kind of see. So it is about instilling hope and to not stigmatize it, like just to put it out there and make sure that people know that there are people there to help professionally and including his family and friends. But I think because Bob is sort of unusual that way, maybe not unusual, but he was receptive. He was definitely receptive, and he didn't disappear. So he made himself available, which was helpful, very helpful.
Meditation or mindfulness is something that I've been working at for years, and it was very hard. It actually took 7 years for it to become my friend. But now that it's my friend, I look forward to doing it on a daily basis. I learned from my meditation because I follow a guided meditation. And even though I listen to the same one, which is 20 minutes of guiding and then another 10 minutes of just sitting, I explore and I hear something new every time. So mindfulness for me is typically a way of controlling my monkey brain, my thoughts, and really has been one of the main tools that I have used to continue on my path to recovery. Fly fishing is another tool that I really learned from my father and a number of other old guys. It's not something that you can YouTube. It's something that you practice and you can never perfect. But for me, it is being in a zone that, again, hours turn into minutes. It's every cast is different. It's beautiful. It's the pursuit of non-friction. And I can go for hours seeking the fish, looking for it, hooking it, and at the end, catching it, and then releasing it to let it go again. So it has both a physical attribute, because I'm walking down the river over uneven surfaces for a couple hours, but it has the mental mindfulness. It's a form of mindfulness that I use effectively to calm my monkey brain.
And I think his recovery is truly inspiring and really amazing, because I did not see that happening anytime soon. And it did happen, and it happened more quickly than I envisioned. And so it's a happy circumstance and a happy occasion, because Bob really did make a recovery, and now he's giving back, which I think is really cool too. He's not just putting it in the back burner. He's actively trying to help other people who are going through this situation or a similar situation to him. And that's so commendable.
We all know that walking and exercise is key to mental health. I just enjoy a good walk. And it's a walk in a forest so that I can walk mindfully. And once again, hours turn into minutes. I've made a choice to live in nature.
Mental disorders are like any other problem or condition, and we can think about a condition as something that impairs somebody, whether that's functioning or they're suffering in terms of symptoms of distress. And these are things that really come and go. And I think No Magic Bullet is a good name or a good title, because they are not things that you just get rid of in an instant. And in fact, you may never get rid of them, but rather, you learn to manage mental health problems as often chronic conditions or things that are going to come and go. And so learning to accept that and being willing to have what life's dealt you, but work with it as best you can, I think is really what we can most hope for. And if you can let go of getting rid of it, but rather learning to work with what you have, I think that this often can take a lot of the heat out of mental health problems. And that doesn't mean you don't still have issues, but they don't have to be so discouraging, or they don't have to necessarily be a problem, but it's just something that you live with, they're kind of like a companion.
Gardening is something that I've inherited from my father, who always grew roses, never vegetables. But at the beginning of the year, again, it takes planning, takes persistence, takes patience. And over the summer, you get to see things grow. So it helps as part of my toolbox to reduce physical energy, because there's weeding, there's the prepping of the beds, there's the turning over the soil, and there are the benefits again of being able to eat healthy, which is part of the process and the toolbox of making your mental health and physical health, keeping it at peak performance.
So I'm very delighted and very excited to bring up my friend and who you all came to see. Give it up for baby Bob Koven, everybody. Here he is.
everybody. Well, thank you, Dad. That's great. Now, listen, everybody. I really appreciate you all coming because I wanted you to come to the best comedy club in the city, and I wanted to assure you that it was all clean. Unfortunately, the vagina, the period, the MDA, and all those stories really proves that comedy is fun. Now, I had a lot more people coming, but unfortunately, they're all over 60 and they can't stay past 11 o'clock. But this is a good day because there's a lot happening. We have Let's Talk, Robbie Burns Day. Nobody talked about Robbie Burns Day. And of course, the inauguration. Now, this shirt that I have, I got 8 years ago and I was embarrassed to wear because I hated Obama. Now I love Obama. And I hate that guy Trump. So my nickname is Wild Man Crazy. I don't know if it's a nickname or if it's a diagnosis. But I did go to KMH and I did have a diagnosis and they told me that I had Tourette's. So I Googled it. You guys know Google's a man or a woman? Woman. Knows everything and tells you what to do. I'm the poster boy for anxiety. Who gives a shit about Clara Hughes? Why am I standing up here? Because this is therapy. I can stand up here and I can talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and you guys laugh at it. And when I do it at home, I get sent to my room by Cal, my father. Told me there's going to be a lot of drugs and they were going to affect the elections. I said, what elections? They said, your erections. They said, you know, you should take Viagra. So I started taking it. I'm sure a couple of you in here have, not the 30-year-olds, but the 60-year-olds. And there's a warning on the label. It says, if you have an erection lasting longer than 4 hours, go directly to the emergency. I'd rather go to my girlfriend's. She's an nymphomaniac.
Toolbox is something that everybody needs, and everybody's toolbox is different. And the more things you fill up your toolbox with, the more tools you're going to have to deal with them. But these aren't tools like screwdrivers. These are actually activities that are unique to you and they develop over time. And if you ask people how many things they have in their toolbox, a couple of them will say, I don't know. What is a toolbox? Well, a toolbox is just a bunch of tools to help you cope with your challenges. I had a tremendous teacher, Dr. Pat Rockman, who has now started the Center for Mindfulness Studies. And she taught me about mindfulness, how to sit. Unfortunately, it was a challenge and it took lots of practice, and it was almost 5 years before it became my friend. Mindfulness was in my toolbox, and this spot was key to that. What else was in my toolbox? Of course, medication. I'm still on psychiatric medication, not the kind of medication I was on when I started with, but I still take psychiatric drugs. I take to help me feel better. I mean, they're not making me feel worse. And under the guidance of my psychiatrist, he suggested that I stay on them. So what do I have? I have 4 things in my toolbox, which was the best. Also, my comedy is something in my toolbox because a lot of my issues are energy. I have Tourette's. I've always had very great energy, lots of energy to do business, lots of energy to run marathons, lots of energy to get rid of my crazy thoughts. But it was that energy that put me into the tailspin, and I became depressed and couldn't get out of bed for a couple of years. The spot that we're in right now I sat, and one of the things in my guided mindfulness tour was Pat talking about sitting by a river and taking your thoughts and casting them into the river. So there was nothing wrong with having the thoughts, which was something that most people would say, like, they're just thoughts, get rid of them. Well, I basically took my thoughts and visualized throwing them into the river up there and watching them pass by. And as they went past by, they were gone. And that's when I understood that they were just thoughts.
Well, so Bob, excellent.
Thank you.
Really, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that thing about the tornado Bob.
Why not?
Well, I meant it, but not pejoratively. I meant it in the best way. You never know. You just never know what a day with Bob's going to look like. Bob, we have to talk about a couple really important things. It was funny, it was humorous, it was touching, it was meaningful, great insight. But I don't want to lose the opportunity to speak about your life's work, because really that's what this is, Bob. Let's talk about BAST. Take a minute to describe BAST, your BAST specifically, and how you've managed to maintain this BAST. And we'll continue the conversation from there.
I had a wonderful cousin named Vicky Campbell, and Vicky Campbell unfortunately passed away, but she had a BAST, Vicky's amazing support team that helped her through her illness. And from that, I developed a BAST, Bob's Amazing Support Team. And these are people that I've had throughout my life, aside from my family, were friends that basically knew that I got placated if they would speak to me on the telephone. So they called me, I called them. And when I was turned 60, I said I was gonna have a birthday party for myself. And it wasn't that I was an ego person, but I just was happy to be there, to be able to have a 60th birthday, alive and be able to get out of bed. And lo and behold, over 200 people came to my birthday party. And that was a tremendous incentive and tremendous acknowledgement that this team of people came to see me and help me.
So Bob, how does someone with the mental health challenges you described, someone who has suffered, how do you keep going? How do you keep friends? How do you keep getting out of bed? How do you build every day? How do you put all those little elements of your life together to keep yourself occupied, focused, and not a pocket? How do you do that?
Well, my people told me, whether it was my psychiatrist, you'll get better. Everybody gets better. My mother said, you'll get better. My father said, you'll get better. My sister said, that you'll get better. So I knew I was going to get better, but it just required hard work. And that's what I aim to do. I mean, for the mindfulness that I did, it took 5 years for it to be my friend. Now it's counterintuitive. If you don't feel well and you can't get out of bed, how are you going to practice mindfulness? But I knew that one day it would come to be my friend. And finally, one day when I was sitting by the river, I had listened 1,000 times, take your thoughts and throw them in the river. And one day it clicked. And it was that click that was the aha moment that I started using mindfulness as a tool. So it was patience, persistence, practice, and hard work.
So Bob, you have a lot of friends. How do you keep friends? How do you keep people? And I know that part of the secret is, you told me that you're open to listen. But a lot of people who suffer from mental health do not have either the people around them, lose the people around them, don't know how to reach out to the people around them. How do you do it? This is really the secret, because if people can hear you and understand that despite everything, despite all those thoughts in your brain, despite the rushing cacophony, you've managed to slow it down and piece it out and have different relationships with different people. How do you do that? And I know, Bob, or you don't have to tell me, if you text me, I don't respond to you within what? What's my limit? An hour?
Yeah.
You're on me again, right?
Right.
You insist on the connection. So tell us about how you've done that and how you have so many beautiful comments coming in. Who are these people and what do they mean to you, and how do you reach to them so they can give back to you?
Well, actually, Yossi, that word give is important because you have to give to get. So when I connect with somebody, I've learned to be a good listener, and I know what's going on in their lives, and I try to relate to it as to what's going on in my life. So the giving, you give, you get. You can't just call somebody and say, look, can you help? You got to say, what's going on in your life? And then people all of a sudden say, you know what? I've got my challenges, or my kid has its challenges, or my mother has their challenges. What do you think? And I start talking about my tool. So I think that's the secret, Yossi, is giving and getting. And the toolbox.
What's in it? What's in the toolbox?
Well, initially, there was nothing in it.
A bong?
No, there's no bong in it. There's no medical marijuana in it because it made me cough. What was in it was that I moved up north. I was supported by my cousin, Randy and Michael. I was supported by Marla. I was supported by other friends. And I moved up north. And because I had such a strong, stable support system, then all of a sudden things started to emerge. I started taking sunsets. I had friends going through chemotherapy. I sent them the sunset. They said, boy, these are calming. These are wonderful, Bob. I feel so good when you send me the sunset. And what that did for me is it made me feel good that I was making them feel good. So I didn't have to feel bad because I was depressed. Baking. Baking for me became a tool. Everybody loved my baking. They gave me accolades. But for me, I have monkey brain and my mind doesn't stop. And I actually, through therapy, know that my mind is catastrophic thinking. So by baking, I'm busy for 2 hours and I'm calm after I bake. Walking, I get to walk in a forest. There's nothing more meditative than walking in the forest. I garden. Actually, everything that I do, when hours turn into minutes, I know that it's working because I spent a lot of my time having minutes turn into hours where I didn't know what I was going to do.
And I know that fishing for you is one of those things where hours turn into minutes. I do think, I don't know if any of you've all seen Bob's sunsets. You should. They're just absolutely stunning. Bob, you're in your 60s.
66.
Good
I'm
looking
way
man.
into my 60s.
You're doing fine. It took all these years for you to be able to do this. This movie, this documentary, the comedy, the loss of your parents, the loss of people you love, the loss of relationships, some of the brokenness that you've been through, you decided finally, I've had enough. I'm not living my life within my darkness. I'm living in the light. I know. I was there for a lot of it. I was there with you. You were. How does that make you feel that you've been able to decide that you're not going to be stuck?
Well, I owe a lot of it to my parents. And I had a wonderful father who was a wonderful surgeon and was a Renaissance man. And one day he said, Bob, you need to practice ODAC. And I said, what is ODAC? He said, 1 day at a time. So if you know how to practice 1 day at a time, then you're not worried about, are you going to have enough money to retire? Are you going to have enough money to buy something? And so therefore, ODAT, and one day at a time. So I look forward to doing mindfulness. When you sit and relax and you're with yourself, that is a tool that everybody can do. And there's lots of guided tours, there's lots of apps on the internet, but more important, you have to learn to be happy with yourself.
Okay, so just gonna conclude and we're gonna go to Q&A. I know there's been some really great comments coming in, and thank you. If anyone has a specific question, we're gonna try to get to a few of them. Please forgive me if we don't get to everything. For all of you who are writing with great compliments, Bob will be able to see them after we're done because we recorded tonight's show, and I know Bob will absolutely get back to you. But feel free, if anyone has a question. I'm just gonna conclude and tell you that one of my favorite moments with Bob ever was the night that we were dancing to
Earth, Wind and Fire.
September.
Yeah, it
And
was
you-
in September.
And you called your mom.
Yeah.
And you told her that you were wrapping me in bacon instead of filling or something like that. I don't know what the whole thing. But remember that? And that's when I learned that Bob will say what he feels. And that was one of the greatest nights of my life, dancing in the hot chalet to a great piece of music, discovering that inside of you, Bob, is a fearless Renaissance man who took the lack of fear, and you've lived a very long time, inspiring a lot of people. You have no idea how much you've inspired me. You have no idea. And if I told you how much, you'd say, oh, Yossi, that's who you are. No, Bob. Everyone, I'm sure, that's watching tonight that got touched by you and has been in your life has learned something from you. You're right. You always give back. You don't just take. So we're all pulling for you, and I'm delighted to be part of your vast, honored, actually. Feel free to share comments, and feel free to share anything you'd like on the chat. I'll just read a couple. One really beautiful from Rebecca. Such an inspiring story, Bobby. So touched to have the privilege to be included in this sharing. Walking in nature is key. I can relate in many ways. Your courage and openness are admirable. Thank you for these crucial treats. So much love all around. Thanks for sharing. It's just really nice. Useful and helpful tools, absolutely. Bob, let's just share a few tools while I'm waiting to see if there's a question coming in. But if not, you probably answered, and probably all the life stories you've been sharing have answered. You remember the time that I gave you a photo, one of my photos, and what I did was I took your river and I turned it upside down and I gave you a picture of the reflection that looked like the river. The truth is that's really what your life's been. Everyone sees the river the way it is. You see things a little bit differently.
Well, can I just say, I want to compliment you because you throw a fly line like it's magic. I know that you're not like a river runs through it, but you are Yossi with the river runs through it. It's like watching a thing of beauty. So this is something that you and I both share.
Yeah, we shared something about it takes a lot of courage to ask for help. And you've never been afraid to do that. And even I remember sometimes it was hard to come hang out with you because not regularly, but every once in a while I was going through my own stuff and I couldn't really focus on what was going on, and sometimes, but the joy of watching you overcome your stuff is incredible.
One of the things that was in the documentary was my girlfriend, my life partner, Marla Morris.
Marla!
Hello, Marla.
You look so good in that movie,
You
Marla.
do look
You
good.
should be in pictures.
You should be in pictures, Marla. But listen, the nice thing about Marla, it's very difficult, and maybe some of you can relate to this, to have a relationship with somebody that has mental health, because everybody gets happy Bob and poor Marla gets sad Bob. But that's just the reality of it. And it really goes back to patience, persistence, and practice. And so I think that's important, that maybe that will stimulate some questions about if you live with somebody that has mental health challenges. You have to be patient and understand that it's tough for them and they know that it's tough for you.
So Bob, question came in from, I'm not gonna say who it doesn't matter. Bob, thank you for being you. Have you ever thought of reaching out and talking to youth and young adults about mental health? They would appreciate it. Undoubtedly they would. Is this something you think you might have in you?
I would love to. I did do a talk to children that had autism up in Collingwood, and the challenge was that they had to vet my talk because you never know what's going to be a trigger for somebody that's challenged. But I would love it because I had bad behavior as a kid. I had to go to a preschool called AISB, and it wasn't until I was diagnosed with Tourette's that all of a sudden there was magic to why I was such a crazy person.
Bob, I remember the first time I met you, I saw that crazy, what did they call you at Beaver Valley Ski Club?
Wild man.
The Wild Man. And there was this picture of you doing a flip off the mountain or something. You remember that?
Well, actually, what happened was I was 10th in Canada in hot dog skiing. And the only reason I did that was not to get accolades that I knew how to flip, but it was just a way of expending my energy because there was no fancy pools. There was no fancy flip camps. You just sort of hit this jump and did a flip. So when I hit that jump and I landed, I'm telling you, I was relaxed. Just that I landed on my feet.
And Bob, I wanted to talk briefly about your recent road trip with Aaron and what that meant to you.
Well, my father
is Aaron is your son, obviously. How old is Aaron now?
Aaron would be, God, I think he's 33 or 34.
Close enough.
And he's a wonderful kid. And my father and I fished for 20 years down in New Brunswick. My father was from Grand Falls, New Brunswick. And Aaron and I went on a road trip to take a capsule with all my father's belongings and a GPS and let it go in the Miramichi. And while we were at it, Aaron caught his first 2 salmon. And I can tell you, I have never, and I love the fact that this is living Jewishly because I can say the Shek Nachas like that in my life. What a pleasure to see my son continuing on the legacy that my father learned from his father, I learned from my father, and now Aaron's working for me. And Yossi, you don't even know this, but la door va door, generations to generations. So it's not Talmud, it's fishing.
Good enough, Bob. I'll take it.
Okay.
Listen, there's a lot of Talmudic logic in fishing anyhow, right?
Is there?
Of course, match the hatch, the whole story. Bob, a couple comments that I want to include that I want to wrap up with. Wonderfully moving film and meaningful message. Grateful for you sharing your courage, comedy, passion. Rock on, Bobby. And wonderful and inspiring to listen and learn more about your incredible story. For more than 50 years, I've had the privilege of being in your sphere. And I thank you for sharing. Bob, a lot of people love you.
Well, thank you very much, Josie. And I love you, and I love Jewishly, and I love the fact that you guys worked so hard to help me deliver this hard impact message to people. There is no magic bullet, just hard work, practice, patience, and persistence.
Any more questions? Now's your chance. Bob, I just want to say about you that you are irresistible. People love you. I love you. You're not easily ignored or forgotten. You're inspiring. Like, remember the salad he made when I was up at your house? He said, let's go to the garden and pick the salad. How cool was that?
Yeah, but then you asked me to make sure that I bought the coffee.
That's what I said?
No, I didn't say that, but I was thinking.
I wasn't thinking apocalyptically. Bugs are protein, Bobby.
I love it, and I love you.
You. Okay, all of you. Thank you very much. Living Jewishly is very proud to host Bob Koven and his incredible film. Irresistible indeed, says people. And you know what, to all and wonderful, keep inspiring, keep caring. If you see someone who needs help, Bobby can help. And if you know anyone with mental health, it's sometimes easy to just think of it as they're selfish or they're taking themselves first. But really, Bob, I think what you're telling us is that some people need to be taught how to build a vast. It's not an easy thing. You're lucky. You've had a lot of great people around you, and many of them in the film. I just want to share the final thoughts. So glad I had the opportunity to hear your story, Bob. So inspirational. Your commitment to helping others is so inspiring. Your toolbox is one that everyone can use on a daily basis. I'm going to recommend that you get yourself a toolbox. It's kind of like a pie. You build the box made out of dough. The filling you put in is the stuff you like, the stuff that feels good, the stuff that is meaningful, the stuff that reminds you of your parents and of your good memories. And you add a little sugar, a little lemon. And you might want to cook it a little, maybe a little butter. But you know what? Ultimately, it's your box and your pie and your filling. And whatever gets you through the day is not a bad thing. It's exactly what you need to do, one day at a time. Thank you. Okay. Loving memory to your parents, and they were very proud of you. Your mom would be embarrassed, but very proud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yossi.
Yeah.
Thank you also to Betty, who's been behind the scenes and has been a wonderful support system from Living Jewish.
Yeah, and Bobby, I do agree with the comment, create a blog or some kind of platform to reach out to those who need. Yeah, with your sunsets, you're doing that. And if you start to put your thoughts on this down, you'll save lives. So,
Well, I actually have a website called Crazy After All These Years with a capital K. And if you go to Living Jewishly, I'll ask Betty to maybe put it on. And there is a blog there of some of my podcasts, of some of my comedy routines, of a radio interview that I just recently did at Canoe FM, and a little bit about my toolbox.
yeah. Michael Batshevitz said thank you. A wonderful evening. Thank you, Michael, for participating in the film with Bob. It meant the world to him. It was a nice hat he wore. And to all, a wonderful good evening. And it was just really a pleasure to be here. So we look forward to more. And Bob, we love you.
Okay.
Okay, friends. Okay, if you know Bob, you're lucky. Bob, when's your 70th birthday?
I practice ODAD. I haven't done a clue.
When we get there. Okay, all. Have a wonderful evening. And good
Bye,
night.
thanks.
Bye
Thanks
bye.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.